One of the things that I find fascinating, yes, Mocha's with me today because Mocha really wants some attention. One of the things I find fascinating when it comes to entrepreneurs is the number of times that people have a solution that has never been proven, or they have a solution that's important to them, i.e., it's a problem they had, but nobody else seems to have the problem. Solving a problem for no one but you is not a business. You think about it for a second, and I shared this a few weeks ago, but not under the Learn to Roar philosophy, and that's what I really want to focus on is helping you understand how the Learn to Roar philosophy impacts so many areas of life. We've already talked about how when you understand the philosophy, you understand the principles. These principles permeate just about everything. We've talked about wealth, we've talked about health, we've talked about family, we've talked about school from a student's perspective. Today I want to talk about success. And because I'm an entrepreneur, and although I worked in corporate America for 10 years at a Fortune 50 company, I mean one of the biggest companies in the world, I'm not a sold out company guy, so to speak. I didn't retire from a VP position or a CEO position. I haven't, been that high in corporate America. That's not my thing. I spend a lot of time around those guys who've never worked with anybody, never worked for anybody else, just themselves. I think of Dale Oaks as an example. Straight out of college, kind of launched his own business. Had his own little jobs when he was in high school. And to this day, and he's a few years ahead of me, has never worked for anyone all of his life. He has always been an entrepreneur, starting his own ventures and running his own businesses. I truly believe, having an entrepreneurial spirit, even when you're on someone else's payroll, that entrepreneurial spirit, that taking ownership and responsibility for everything, is a gigantic advantage for just about anybody. And it offers not job security, but employment security. And those are significantly different. The idea that I can have a job and move from job to job to job to job to job to job to job, but always have a job, it's a myth. I mean, there are, even in an upward economy, as we have right now, there are layoffs of people at the highest level. It just happens. Companies downsize, companies merge, companies get bought out. And as those things happen, various people have to get laid off. We've talked before about Jack Welch's approach that if he was asked to come in and reorganize a company or lead it because it was having trouble, the first thing he did was fire all the top level people. Why? Well, because if they were leading as they were supposed to, the company wouldn't be in trouble. That's a pretty brilliant observation. So how does the Learn to Roar philosophy affect you if you either A, work for somebody else but have an entrepreneurial spirit, or B, work for yourself with an entrepreneurial spirit? So let's address that. In the Learn to Roar model, the first R is relevance. And I can't tell you, like I said, how many people have a solution for a problem that is either A, a fake problem, or B, they're the only ones who've ever had that problem. And when you're the only one that's ever had the problem, solving it for everyone else, it might be a nice thing to have that you prevent a problem that's never occurred, but it's not going to make any money. Last night I saw a couple on Shark Tank, and I don't know how old this episode is. Perhaps I've seen it before, but on this particular episode, they presented basically a changing station, but it weighs the baby before and after you fed the baby. It's a hypersensitive scale, basically. And later, they want the ability to be able to add things like temperature and heart rate and blood pressure and all that stuff, so you can really monitor the baby as if you were at a nurse's station. But none of the sharks could see a $300 value for something that may be only relevant in the baby's life for 6 to 9 months. I mean, after that, it's pretty obvious if they're still hungry. They're going to tell you. They're going to go grab food. They're, at 9 months old, they're going to kind of be obvious about what they need. So the life cycle of a product like that is pretty short. A high price for a product like that, not real conducive to families who are, they're not greatly educated or not experienced with parenting. all of those challenges that come with young families, $300 devices, it's not a good mix. So when we talk about relevant, the question that we're really asking is the product or service that you're offering really relevant to anyone that you would consider a marketplace? Is your item, is your service, is your book, is your solution relevant? Will people look at it and go, wow, I just have to have that, or I have had that same problem for so long? The other thing that I find is that solutions that only solve the problem for one or two people won't last long. I mean, we've all seen things like Ron Popeil's Pocket Fisherman and things of that nature. Not that there was anything wrong with them, but although they sold like hotcakes for a short period of time, you don't really see them around much anymore because the problem that they solved has been solved by many people now and in many different ways. That's a little different approach to a problem, right? On the other hand, a solution that works for everyone, every time, everywhere. It doesn't care about race or creed or political orientation. An example would be the young people who figured out the Rubik's Cube can be solved. If you have that solution to the Rubik's Cube, if you know which ones to turn which way when, you can do it blindfolded. You can do it when you're 8 years old or 88 years old. You can do it if you're male or female. You can do it no matter what continent you were born on or what educational level you have. If you have the solution to the Rubik's Cube, that solution works on every Rubik's Cube in every time zone, every part of the day, for any race, creed, or national origin. That's pretty significant as a solution. So I want to challenge you as an entrepreneur or even as an employee, the relevance that you bring to the table. Is your solution going to work every time, or at least a majority of the time? 20 to 30% of the time is going to be really hard to win with. But a solution that tips the scale at 60, 70%, a solution that's more likely to work than not work, that's a powerful solution. And it makes a gigantic difference. As it makes a difference in people's lives, it will make a difference in your life because the economy will show the results that you're achieving. Next, let's move on to ownership. One of the challenges, and I have to be honest and say I face it myself because I am a content generator. That's a natural course for me. It's the easy part of what I do. Now, that seems crazy to some because the idea of sitting down in front of a blank keyboard and typing, in the old days, we might call that writing, where you're just scribbling out, right? The blank page terrifies most people. It doesn't for me. The flow of information coming in and out, because my number one strength is a learner. I'm constantly reading and studying new stuff and then bringing these diverse ideas together to draw conclusions that are, I think, profound. And so I share those with people on a regular basis, sometimes in writing, sometimes in a blog, sometimes just like this, sometimes face-to-face over coffee. But that content coming out is the easy part for me. And it's common for me to hear, and it is for a lot of creatives. It's common for me to hear, wow, that stuff is really good. How else can I get it? And what my natural reaction is, and the natural reaction of most highly creatives, is I should create another way for that to be delivered. You know, if I've just told it to them, it should also be in a book. If it's in a book, it should also be on a CD or a DVD or a USB drive or a video online. And if there's several of those that are like that and they belong together, then there should also be a course so you can get it all on a USB or a DVD or download it online. And so all of those things, those come naturally. And any little tug at that is like pulling on the fiber of a sweater. I just come all unraveled and just more content comes. That's the natural course for me. You know what's not natural? And this is ironic because prior to being an entrepreneur, all of my success has been in sales. I do a really good job of selling other people's stuff. If there's something you need that I don't offer, I'll connect you with somebody else who offers it in a heartbeat. In fact, most of the time, I'll connect you with somebody else, even if I could have done the work and made a little money on it. I'll connect you with somebody that I know is going to serve you better. I have no problem selling other people's stuff. I have a problem sometimes selling myself. But when we come to the O in roar, we've had relevance, now we're at ownership, and the ownership that you have to take as an entrepreneur, the area that I struggle sometimes is the sales aspect. I actually was requested by a school that I had provided some content for in the past to sit down and talk. They're like, hey, have you got anything new? What else have you been up to? We're really impressed with what you offered, but we haven't heard from you since then. Sales. And at that invitation, I was excited. I've got 3 or 4 new products that would be incredible for their teachers and their students. And I just didn't never bother to call them and go, hey, you should check this out. I get asked to go speak in the Congo, and I'm like, yes, new opportunity to create new content. And I develop everything specifically for them. And then I realized, hey, that would work in a lot of places. That could help a lot of people. And so I developed that content into something else, and I never call anybody to say, hey, I have this new content. Ownership is huge. It's about not just having the responsibility for yourself to do the daily disciplines necessary to create your content, to develop your product, to test your product, to test the quality of it, to make sure that all of your business is up and running as it should be. All the systems are in place. All the financiers are taken care of properly. Everything is being documented so that you can go back and do it again or pass that process on to somebody else. All of those things are the ownership of the CEO or the founder of an organization. And again, it doesn't matter if it's 1 people or 1,000 people. The founder, the leader of that organization should be taking responsibility for all that. And in the early days as an entrepreneur, if you're 1, 2, 5, or 30 people, the best person to be your salesperson is you, because nobody knows your business like you. Whether you're a plumber or a contractor, doesn't matter. No one knows your business like you. No one knows everything you know about what you're capable of like you. No one can answer the question in a sales meeting to close the deal like you. So you're going to have to take ownership of those aspects of your business and do them. That doesn't mean you always have to do them. When your organization has reached a level where the income flow is strong enough that you can bring other people on board, where you've proven your quality and your quantity enough that there's a flow of business coming in, and you can hire someone else to handle the accounting, or hire someone else to handle the sales processes, or hire someone else to handle the website, that's fine. But until you get there, I highly recommend, as an entrepreneur, that you invest your time, you invest your energy, you invest your talents in understanding the inner workings of all of those things. Go back and watch some of Michael Hyatt's early video blogs about his developing his business to the point that it is now. Michael Hyatt was a high-earning, 6-figure CEO for a very large publishing company. And when he stepped down from that and became an entrepreneur, for the first couple of years, he was a solopreneur. And you can see that in his blogs and in his posts. And he'll tell you, I'm trying to figure out this kind of software, and I'm trying to figure out this kind of theme, and what about this WordPress process? Now, this has been 5 or 6 years ago. But even a guy at the highest level of earning and the highest level of influence as a CEO, when he started his own business, he started his own business. Over time, he hired someone to develop the website theme that he wanted to have, with all the bells and the whistles and the tricks that it had to have. But before he hired someone to do that, he tested all of his own theories himself to see if they worked. Before he hired someone to come in and shoot videos, he shot videos himself with a tripod. Before he moved on to developing online apps and programs and long-term courses, he walked through all of that process himself. He downloaded the plugins. He understood what they needed to do. He understood where their shortcomings were. Brendan Burchard did the same thing. Kajabi wouldn't exist today if Brendan Burchard hadn't worked through the process of how do I roll out a program with digital content in a way that everyone has access to it. See, the necessity of operating a small business often creates opportunity. Another good example is Derek Halpern. Derek Halpern talks all the time about social triggers. Well, early on, he wrote writing a blog that converts. And his early work had to do with, why is it that we keep putting our content into these walled gardens where we don't have control of it, we don't even have ownership of it, we don't even have the content anymore once we put it up on Facebook. And if Facebook changes an algorithm, our marketing is gone. If YouTube changes a process, Our marketing is gone. Why don't we build a blog or build a website or build some other way of communicating with our clients? You know, there are tools out there today that I think of the specific wrench designed to take off oil filters. When I first started changing my own oil at 15 years old, you grab hold of that slippery, slimy sucker, and if you did break it loose by hand, because you can't put a socket on it, you can't. There's no way to get a hold of it. There's no wrench big enough, and it doesn't really have teeth. But once it gets on there and that engine heat and pressure sucks on it for a long time, pulling the oil through it, it's really hard to break it loose. And the minute you do break it loose, all the oil drains out. Now it's running down the side of it, and you've got this hot, sticky coffee can thing with oil on it, and it's slimy, and it's hard to get a hold of. And my uncle taught me a trick when I was young. He said, just get a big screwdriver and stab it through the side of it, and now you have that handle to turn it. Well, that works on many vehicles, but some of them come from the side, and there's no way to turn it with a screwdriver. Some of them, you can't even get enough room to get a screwdriver through it, or you have to tap on it. Now you're worried about bending the seal or the threads, and so there's all kinds of risk with that. As little motors have been devolving, Freudian slip. But then someone came out with this wrench that clamps down on it when you push the handle. So you slide it up on there and you push the handle, and then as you push, it not only tightens the wrench, but it loosens the oil filter. Who would have thought of that? The guy who had to take the stupid thing off too many times without such a tool. And so necessity became the mother of invention. Some people say laziness is the mother of invention. There may be some truth to that too. But nobody had an oil filter wrench until the guy that invented one said, I'm sick of grabbing that thing every other way and trying to get it off of there. You may find that whether it's developing software, developing the latest app, building a new gizmo, finding a new way to hide furniture in the wall. I'm sure you've seen some of those videos where they pull on the bed and it just, it disappears into the wall. That's genius stuff. But again, invention usually comes from either laziness or necessity. When you take ownership in your business, you're going to see those things happen. And that dovetails right into authority. What makes you the authority in what you do? Well, I was the guy who spent X number of years trying to take the stupid oil filter off, so I created the wrench to make that easier. It made my life easier, and now hundreds of millions of people around the world use that same designed wrench. Now, the guy who owns the patent on that is probably filthy rich. But the guy who sells it makes more money. That's a fact. It's the way it works. If you're not selling what you've created and invented, who's going to? At least enough to get the ball rolling and hire a team, right? But the authority that you have in your industry, whether it's oil filter wrenches, apps, software, books, whatever it is, the authority you have comes from the experience that you've had. And over time, you add those experiences together, you invent, you create, you develop, you expand, and then that experience equips others to do what you're doing. And once you've equipped them, then you can empower them. And once you've empowered them, you're beginning to give away authority that came from your blood, sweat, and tears. As that process continues, you will very quickly find yourself in a place where all of the labor that you put in, all the experiences that you had early on, all the things that you did to build your business make you the credible source for people to turn to. I mean, there's a reason those people on Shark Tank are on Shark Tank. The guy who owns Uber, Mark Cuban. These people have proven success time and time again with different products, different platforms, different audiences, different ways of doing things. But they have authority as business leaders because of the successes that they've had. And this finally brings us to responsible. Responsible to the outward expression, not the inward expression of ownership, where you're responsible for your own sales and responsible for your own product development, and responsible for your own accounting until such time that you can delegate the authority of that internally. But responsible for the results that you produce, responsible for the way that your product or service impacts a community. I mean, the technology exists today for driverless cars. It does. Today, you could buy a car that drives all on its own. But to be responsible for all the other cars on the road, understanding the working dynamics between driver cars and driverless cars is pretty significant. Understanding the psychology of how people think and react to a car that has no one behind the wheel. All of those type of elements of impact have to be studied. They have to be proven. Because in order for a company to produce a product like that, being responsible for the impact it has on society, being responsible for the way that it impacts the people around, the legacy, and the next generation, all of those are significant. If your product or solution only works once or twice for somebody, and then suddenly it doesn't work anymore, I think of fad diets. I think of these things that sometimes are sold on infomercials, and 6 months later, you can't get your hands on one, and then 2 months after that, you see this lawsuit out there. If you purchased XYZ, medicines or drugs or appliances or whatever else, we have a class action lawsuit. Join the lawsuit. And what happened was a company rushed to market with a product that wasn't tested or proven. The same thing happens with solutions that are oriented towards your business. There are regulations that can be changed overnight. And if you're not responsible for the way that you put all that stuff together and looked at the impact that your outflow of products and services will have on the society as a whole, or the society at large, then you're going to find yourself in a place where your business can be stripped away in a matter of minutes. I'll give you a good example. It's been decades ago. Some of you may not even remember. A fax machine is like a printer attached to your phone line. And so instead of sending something from your laptop, your iPad, or your phone to print out so that you have the document that you can write on, you used to get a phone call and then the machine would switch over and use your dial-up modem to create the document on the printer. Now, that was both good and bad. The good was you didn't have to go through the process of scanning and putting it into your computer and making sure the page was straight and blah, 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 blah. You stuck them in that machine, dial somebody else's number, it would go right through the machine and spit out on the other side. It was very convenient for its day. It also had one downfall, and that was it existed before the do not call list, which means if anybody got their hands on your fax number from your business card, from your LinkedIn profile, from your website, they would simply scour your data, put your fax number in their big list, and then they would sell that list to some other business who might want to solicit you as a sales campaign. Well, early on, rather than pieces of paper with toner or pieces of paper with ink, there was this big roll of paper like a cash register receipt, only bigger. And it was called a thermal print. And so every fax machine would roll out this paper and make a thermal image on it from an inbound phone call. And if your name got on the list of one of these people who were just calling anybody who had a fax machine and sending them menus and commercials and ads and coupons, and there were days that you would come in and your entire machine would be out of paper because your name got sold to a big major list who had 40 or 50 advertisers. So basically a magazine showed up on your floor and your fax machine doesn't know not to take it. So the call comes in, the data comes in, and it prints it, spits it out, drops it on the floor. And now you're out of $50 worth of paper. It was a great solution for the people who wanted to advertise. It was a great moneymaker for the guy who was selling the ads and faxing them out to everybody, because literally he just developed a software app that would dial the number, send the fax, dial the number, send the fax, dial the number, send the fax, dial the number, send the fax. He didn't even have to pay anybody to sit there and poke the buttons. And he was making literally hundreds of thousands of dollars a day. Hundreds of thousands of dollars a day. How would you like to have a business that makes hundreds of thousands of dollars a day? But being responsible for the impact that his business model, he provided a solution for the advertiser, he provided income for himself, he had no concern for how it impacted the society or the culture or the person who received that fax. And it became such a big deal, such a financial burden on so many consumers and business owners that they actually took it to Congress and asked that there be some kind of law created so that this guy couldn't send them a fax every day. And Bill Clinton signed an executive order, and one night the guy went to bed knowing that when my fax machines start firing up at 6 a.m., I will make $100,000 plus today. And when he went to bed that night, his business was done. By law, he was out of business. For him to send one more fax was a violation of federal law. Executive order signed to prevent faxing someone who hasn't requested it. That's a big deal. But when you operate your business because it serves you and it solves a problem only for one category of people, but you're not responsible for how it makes everyone else feel or how it impacts their business or their society, you're going to find yourself in the same kind of situation. There's a big push right now because there haven't been enough studies, my opinion. There haven't been enough studies done to see what the impact of all of the various forms of cannabis in our society might create. Cannabis oils, cannabis in the form of plants, smoking them, raising them in the front yard and the backyard. What impact will it have over a generation on our education levels, on our employment levels, on our ability to function as a society? Well, we've never really had it en masse because laws have always prevented that. But as that's evolving, there are people who are going into business because they see cannabis as a frontier. It's a new business. It's newly legal. There are not a lot of people in it. You have a chance to, quote, get in on the ground floor. You can make a lot of money selling the variant products of cannabis. But because we haven't looked far enough down the road, my opinion, and said, what will be the long-term impact of cannabis on our society, on our education level, on the number of people who finish high school and go on to college, or finish college and build a career, or finish college and build an empire, like a Steve Jobs or a Bill Gates. How many generations away are we from utter collapse in our societies? And would cannabis possibly be one of those features that impacts, that one day we'll see this mogul making hundreds of thousands of dollars a day who has no concern for the impact downstream? Will cannabis go the way of the fax machine? Will you invest all of your time and all of your energy and all your money into a fax machine styled solution that tomorrow will be outdated or illegal because of its impact on society and culture? I don't know the answer to that question. But if you apply the Learn to Roar leadership philosophy, be relevant. Don't solve fake problems. Have ownership. Take responsibility early on to do all of the hard aspects of the job yourself. Do your own sales. Do your own development. Do your own product creation. Do your own marketing research. And you will find that you have a much stronger base and a much stronger foundation from which to operate as you begin to delegate authority, equip and empower people to run your business the way you've envisioned it, and using the trial and error that you've already worked out. Dave Ramsey is another example of the same thing. And finally, if you exhibit the responsible nature of how what I do impacts those around me, what kind of investment will I make in society at large, in our culture going forward, generation or two, generation or 10 from now, will they look at what I've done and say, wow, we couldn't have done it without you? People today still use the oil filter wrench when they take oil filters off, whether they're changing them at home or they're changing them at the shop. It's a powerful tool. It does what it's made to do. It doesn't do anything else. It's kind of useless for mixing eggs. It just is. It's a powerful tool for what it does. And it doesn't hurt anybody. And it doesn't cost anybody else any money. It just does what it's made to do. When you apply that Learn to Roar philosophy to your success as an employee or an entrepreneur, you will find great success lies ahead of you. I hope you'll take the time to do that. Apply those 4 principles today. I'm J Loren Norris, and you've been watching Tell It Like It Is TV. You can learn more at learntoroar.com. I encourage you to subscribe if you like this video. You can click on the subscribe button right there on Facebook Live or on YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. May lose my partnership if I don't reach that 4,000 hours a month of viewing. So if that evolves to that, you'll begin to find these videos more on my other websites like Excellent Life Leadership. So stay engaged, stay in touch. Subscribe on iTunes, and you can get these videos downloaded daily to what you're doing. And if you'd love for me to come and speak to your organization, speak to your team, the Attitude Hack will be available very, very soon as a complete and comprehensive program. Most of the schools that we're talking to, it looks like it's going to be a half day to a full day training for in-staff training I'd love to bring it to your workplace as well. It's a significant piece in changing the way attitudes are approached and managed in your workplace. Hit me up if I can help you with that. You can find my cell phone number on my website at jlorennorris.com. Until tomorrow, have a blessed day.